You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. Join Steve and his guests every week as he staggers from Georgia to Maine.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Mighty Blue podcast. I'm your host, Steve Adams, or Mighty Blue. I'm out here trying to achieve my third through hike of the Appalachian Trail. Last week, I set myself a target of about 80 miles in a week, and you heard last Thursday how well that has started. It's continued to go well, and I even had my first 20-mile day a couple of days ago. It's been great to get up to speed so fast, though I'm thankful to all of you who've reached out, gently warning me to take my time. Some less gently than others, actually. I don't take this input lightly, but I feel that I'm exactly where I should be right now. So while my legs remain strong, I intend to continue with this plan. Because, I should be putting in these 20-mile days at this part of the trail, because the chances of doing it later in the trail are less and less. Those of you who've been following me know that I'm in Duncannon right now, and that my next hike will be at the start of the rocks of Rocksylvania. I can't say that I'm entirely looking forward to it, but I will be doing a slack back for the first 18 miles. That should ease me into it. But before we hear about how these last 4 days have gone, let's hear from our sponsor, Polar Steps. If you're heading out on a long hike this year, which I am, I've got something I think you're going to love. It's called Polar Steps. It's a travel tracking app that's going to become a favourite with hikers. You set your start date, let it run quietly in the background, and it maps your entire journey automatically, all on your own beautiful spinning 3D globe. And don't worry, the tracking feature uses about 4% of your battery on a single charge, so it's not going to kill your phone when you're out there. You can add photos and short journal entries as you go, so your map shows you where you were and your words remind you of what that day actually felt like. There's a light social layer too. Family and friends can follow along, or you can keep it completely private. As every hiker says, hike your own hike. And when you're done, you can relive the whole thing in the app, or turn it into a stunning coffee table book with your route, stats, photos and stories. And did I tell you that it's entirely free to download and use? The only time you'll be paying anything is if you decide to turn your trip into a book. That's Polar Steps. Track it now, treasure it forever. Day 73, last Wednesday. Pine Grove Furnace Store, which is mile 1105.9, to a stealth site just past Whiskey Spring Road, mile 119.2, a 13.3 mile day. Which means my total for this week from Monday through to Wednesday is 51.2 miles. Despite being in a bunk room, I had a comfortable quiet night as there was another old guy in the room and we were about as far away from each other as we possibly could be. I knew that I would be starting late on this morning as I needed to use the Wi-Fi in order to put together my latest podcast. Additionally, I had to resupply from the general store, though I wasn't hopeful that I'd have too much of a choice. So I got up fairly early and went into the dining area to prepare my coffee and some biscuits and gravy. I was alone for quite a while and started to prepare my script, I suppose you'd call it. This show always takes me longer to prepare than I think it will. So at 9 a.m. when the general store was opened, I walked the 50 yards and got a fairly reasonable supply, which would largely feature ramen, unfortunately. Oh well. As I was leaving the store, I saw a woman filling a cooler with ice and soft drinks, and I asked if she'd like me to put it in her car. She looked up, did a kind of double take and said, "Are you Mighty Blue?" I love it. She told me she was heading for Shenandoah to dispense some trail magic. We took a selfie, and I'm afraid I don't recall her name, but it was great to meet you, ma'am. Back at the mansion, I went out to the quiet back of the house and recorded my show, putting it all together in time to leave by 10:30, which is way longer than it really should have been. After the 2 long days that I'd just done, I was pretty comfortable that my mileage would be down considerably, and I set out on the long, flat path before climbing back up several hundred feet. I still had a solid target for the day, mainly because a guy named Dave Walker, along with his buddies, Jeb Brody and James Triplett, all three of them long-time listeners to the podcast, were doing trail magic 10 miles ahead of me at Sheet Iron Roof Road. David messaged me and hoped I'd be there. How wonderful, eh? After that initial climb, there was a gentle 5 odd miles going down before another climb, then down to Dave and his buddies. You know, I know I've upped my mileage and I know some people are concerned about it, but you know, the relative ease of the terrain is reflected in how I've gone in the last couple of days. I couldn't have done this if it was tons and tons of mountains, but really this has been quite smooth sailing for me, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. So I feel I'd be letting myself down if I didn't put these miles in, and I'm very comfortable at the end of the day with my legs. Anyway, Dave welcomed me like a conquering hero, and I took selfies with him and his mates, and they pushed food on me, and what a spread it was. He'd asked me if there was anything special I wanted, so I replied that if he could put a fried egg on my burger, I'd be a very happy man. No sooner said than done. It was awesome. I hung around with the guys for about an hour, maybe more, before heading out once more. I had a big beam on my face because of all the love that I was getting, and here was another wonderful example. I really feel blessed. In the back of my mind, I considered pushing through to Boiling Springs, which would have been another 19-mile day. But when I looked at the elevation map on Far Out, I could see that I'd end the day with 4 substantial climbs. I just didn't fancy that. I was pretty tired. You know, it had been a long day already for me. My overall plan for these 3 days was to reach Duncannon, some 45 miles from Pine Grove Furnace State Park, which meant that I needed to average 15 miles a day, much of it in the incredibly flat Cumberland Valley. So I knew that I could stop short of Boiling Springs and easily make the target. I remember back in 2019, I was walking with Trigger and we got to Boiling Springs. I can't remember where we stayed that day, but we decided to do as much as we could that day. We didn't really talk about doing the full 26 miles into Duncannon, but as we were walking faster and faster and getting stronger. We came to the last shelter before Duncannon, and we were going to stop there. I think it's about 4 or 5 miles short. Then I said to him, do you realise that if we get into Duncannon today and walk through it a bit, that will be 26.2 miles, which is a marathon. And he said, let's go for it. So we did, and we made it. It was terrific. After just 2.5 more miles after the, the Trail Magic, I passed a great water source and spotted a stealth site just away from the road. So my day was done. I set up my tent and my chair, of course, and then headed back to get some water. Unfortunately, I left the tubing for my catadine at the source and was about to head back when I saw Zoo coming my way, calling out that she had picked it up, and she knew it was mine because she'd seen me use it before. Happy days. I really hate losing stuff. So I settled down by myself and enjoyed the quiet of the woods. It was absolutely glorious. Day 74, which was last Thursday. My stealth site just past Whiskey Spring Road, mile 1119.2 to Darlington Shelter, mile 1139.4. Yep, a 20.2 mile day, my first 20 mile day, making 71.4 miles that I'd done in the first 4 days of my attempt to get 80 miles in a week. So pretty good start for those 4 days. I had an excellent night's sleep and I woke up to a warm morning and my coffee and some peanut butter on a wrap because I'd forgotten, what an idiot, to buy any breakfast items at the general store the day before. I don't know what gets into me sometimes. I go into a shop with a list of things I want, but I need to put a much more detailed list, obviously, because I often forget breakfast. I still had 6 miles to get into Boiling Springs, and that included 4 climbs, but after the last, we were pretty much done until the end of the day in terms of climbing. I came out of the woods and the path for the next couple of miles took us through wheat fields into Boiling Springs, which, if you've never been there, is a very pretty little town built around a beautiful lake. I found the Cafe 101, which had been recommended to me, and I had a second breakfast with a coffee and a Mexican skillet. Both were excellent and far better than a wrap with peanut butter, as you would imagine. I also, actually, as luck would have it, in Boiling Springs, there is just before the Cafe 101, there is an outdoor shop. And I was hoping to get some breakfast, some freeze-dried dry breakfast. And I got myself one, which I was very happy about. So I won't need the wrap and the peanut butter for tomorrow. Leaving Boiling Springs behind, I was a bit concerned about where my next water would come from because a couple of the water sources were not recommended due to the proximity of or to pasture, which actually means cattle. I was starting to ration my water, even considering leaving the trail about 8 miles after Boiling Springs, where I could have walked a mile or so into Carlisle to fill up. For some reason, and I really don't know why, because I was struggling by now, I didn't take that detour, trusting that it would all work out all right. Yep, a bit of a hint here, guys. Trusting that things will work out is not a sensible strategy on the trail, especially when it comes to water, and I soon realised the error of my ways. And I was gasping again, pretty desperate for water. Then, just 3/4 of a mile later, I came to a small Amish shop on the trail, which was open. It was manned by a couple of young kids who were driving around on a mower and a tractor, treating the shop like their personal lemonade stand. They were so cute. I immediately sunk 2 litres of Gatorade and bought another bottle of water, which I also glugged down pretty much straight away. Then I bought a large vanilla ice cream. It was like a mirage in the desert come true for me. And I so appreciated that. But, once again, it made me realise the value or the need for water and how you can't avoid getting it. Another 3 miles of flat walking, much refreshed, and we started the last, longest and toughest climb of the day. I still felt strong and made it near the top where there was a fast, reliable water source just off trail. I filled up and then several other hikers turned up. Far out suggested that the water at the Darlington shelter, which was where I was heading for the day, was unreliable, so this was really the place to get it done. I then set off before the others, made it to the shelter and set up camp in a really good tenting spot, so I was happy with that. And when the others turned up, I was chatting with them and preparing food, and it was one of those nice evenings again. There was Zoo and there was Bullet, a young man called Rice Krispie, I'd never met him before, and another young guy, I can't remember his name. I made it, rain was forecast for the middle of the night, and I went to sleep after my 20-mile day, content but not looking forward to packing up a wet tent in the morning. Day 75, which was Friday, yesterday, as I'm doing this on Saturday. Darlington Shelter, mile 1139.4, to the Doyle Hotel, the infamous Doyle Hotel in Duncannon, mile 1150.2, a 10.8 mile day, which means I've already passed my target for the week of 82.2 miles. The previous evening, I received this message from a friend from 2019, Bounced a Hiker. He wrote, "You're in my area from the Pennsylvania border to Palmerton. Any treats you're craving?" What an offer. So I wrote back, "Bounce, good to hear from you, hope you're well. A Subway sub and a cold can of Yingling would hit the spot, please." I didn't think he'd be so prompt in his response and that he meant to do it so soon. But he said that he'd meet me in the morning 2 miles ahead of me with the treats that I was craving. How about that for service? I hadn't heard the rain in the middle of the night, so I must have slept really well because it apparently tipped down and my tent was soaked on the outside, of course, fine on the inside. I overslept a bit and let Bounce know that I wouldn't make it until 8 a.m. Before I said, so I did, because I didn't actually set off till I think 7 a.m. Because typical of me, I had to have my coffee first, and I knew there would be food for me at with Bounce, so I didn't bother getting any food at the time because, well, I just didn't need to. So there was Bounce at the very first road with a cooler of Yingling, my sub, and a breakfast sandwich, which I immediately ate. Figuring that it was 5 p.m. somewhere on earth, I also drank one of the beers. Bounce looked amazingly well and gave me a pack of ramen toppers, which he used in his thru-hike last year. So I'm going to be giving them a try in the next few days. I asked if I could interview him and he agreed, so I'll play that in a moment. It really made my day to catch up with him, truly did. But I had to keep moving and I headed on with what he'd given me, plus a couple of bananas for good measure. Once more, I had a big smile on my face. Happily, that's happening a lot these days. I still had about 9 miles to go to get to Duncannon, with another sharp climb to get back up to the ridge. But the highlight in terms of beauty was Hawk Rock, which had gorgeous views down to Duncannon and the Susquehanna River. What surprised me most, though, were the kids who had climbed up there with their parents. There were 3 kids, all under 10, and I shuddered at how dangerous the climb down would be for them. I mean, I absolutely applaud their folks getting them out, but that is a hard climb for anybody, hence my shuddering, really. And in fact, that feeling was reinforced on the way down, because it really wasn't easy. It really was not an easy climb down. In fact, I know that I missed it in 2014. I missed the turn back up the hill, and I went all the way down into Duncannon, only to have to retrace my steps back up the hill and find the other further back up the hill before I got back to Duncannon. So I took my time getting down that climb, knowing how dangerous it was, and I reached Duncannon at about 1 p.m, but I was then on a mission. Wheezy P, a previous guest on the show and a friend, had offered to help me resupply REI, and I didn't want to miss that. I texted her that I needed to shower, get my laundry done, and that 4 p.m. would be a good time for me if it was for her. It was. So I did my chores, and I even found a hair salon nearby where I had the lady buzz my hair and my beard down to a 1.5, which really tightened me up. I'll be getting a bit shabby for the last couple of days. So washing myself and my clothes and getting tidied up was a job well done, and I was ready to go when Wheezy B turned up. At REI, I got some new Injinji liner socks as well as some breakfast for the next few days. Then we found something that Bouncer suggested this morning when we'd been talking about how much my sleeping bag stank. He suggested some Arm & Hammer Odour Defense shoe refresher spray. He says he always sprays his bag and it works a treat. We got that from Target, which Wheezy P took me to. I'll let you know how that works out. Then Wheezy P and I had a pizza, and she got me back to the door where I met up with breadcrumbs and two new women friends of hers. So I sat and had a beer with them before heading to bed, fully intending to taking a 0 on the Saturday because of the 100% chance of rain. I really don't like those odds. So it's I think Friday morning, is it?
Yep.
I'm here with somebody I met 7 years ago, Bounce. He said he found out I was in the area, and he said, what is your heart's desire, or something like that. So I said, a Subway and a cold beer. I didn't realise I'd meet him about 8 o'clock in the morning. But hey, Bounce, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
And thanks for bringing the food on trail. So you hiked back in 2019, and that's the last time I saw you. But I know you also did a southbound hike. When was it? When did you do a southbound hike?
25.
25.
Yeah.
Right. And I wanted to do a full interview on that then. So later on when I get back. So what was it like going southbound?
Like I equate it a little bit more towards like, I mean, there's different phases of the hike.
Sure.
So of course I'll start with Katahdin. Hitting Katahdin the first day, Pancho had told me you should take a 0 the second day, and I didn't do it. I was just like, whatever, I'm gonna keep it rocking.
I'll be good. Yeah.
My knees were shredded after that, and that down off of Katahdin was one of the scariest things I've ever done. It reminds me again. I was like, oh my god, I can't believe I was.
Oh yeah.
There was that moment where I was like, I cannot believe I'm doing this again. I said I was never gonna do it, but. Then once you get past that northbound wave, say around Vermont where the Long Trail and the AT all combine,
sure.
Then it became I got towards the front of the pack, and it became kind of a solo trip at that point.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, all your adventure, I mean, for me, we're building up to, obviously, getting our legs done. Morning. We're building up to getting our legs stronger for New Hampshire and Maine. But for you, once you got through New Hampshire, did it become anticlimactic? I always thought it become anticlimactic a little bit. So
to a point. So in terms of like the physical conditioning, yeah, your knees were hurting. So maybe like 3 weeks, but I actually hit peak condition about a month and a half in. So right, you know that southern Maine portion where it's very aggressive?
Yeah.
So by the time I got into the whites, I was cooking. So
wow.
My experience of like Killington, Pancho came out and visited, and he was off the bench, and we got up to that shelter at the top of Killington.
Yes.
And we were confused about what this building was, because it was, we couldn't be at the top. It was impossible. We pulled out our phone, we're already at the top. I was like, oh wow, that was a casual walk. So
right. Because
my physical capability was so much, it was just probably the best shape I've ever been in. In terms of that, I like a little bit of the aggressive exercise portion. Right. I had a hard time coming down through New York, Pennsylvania, kind of get, and those rolling New York hills.
This is too flat for you, isn't it, in Pennsylvania?
Yeah. Right. Jersey was still perfect. Jersey was still beautiful, and the people were excellent. But that after the whites, then no, it wasn't,
Wasn't that much of a challenge physically?
physically, no.
Well, funny enough, I'm going to mention this now. Bounce not only has he bought the sub and some beer, he's also bought these dried ramen toppings, which is a great idea because ramen sucks. Doesn't it? So adding, I hope there's not a name that somebody will sue me. But all these toppings, you just chuck what, a handful in there? What do you do?
Yeah, so I just added probably about a handful. I don't know. I would if I was measuring maybe like 3 ounces to each, because it does swell up your ramen. It'll make a ramen into a full meal.
Oh, right.
But the primary thing that, like, yeah, there's all kinds of ramen toppings. There's mushrooms. There's all kinds of, it's the protein at nighttime that I found. Because, my first through hike, I was down to like 168 at the end. Right. This one, I ended in the mid 180s. Solid. And I only real big change was the protein at dinner.
That is remarkable. It really is. And you've written a book about it as well, haven't you?
Well, I wrote a book about, it's really I call it a human story that it turned into a hiking story. It really starts in 2018 and the book, the story ends in 2020 when after the first through hike in 2020. Right. I haven't written anything about 21 to 25. I haven't written anything about that.
Right. And so what's the book called?
Walk Uphill by Bounce the Hiker. Bounce DA Hiker.
You've got a Bounce the Hiker hat on right now.
So a lot of people don't understand the correlation. I'm going to finally tell. I'm a huge Chicago Bears fan.
Oh, yeah.
So the Bears. 2 people so far have got that before I had to tell them. But they think I'm just an idiot, but no, it's the Bears.
Bounce the Hiker. Fantastic. That's really good. Well, look, it's lovely to see you, man, and I really appreciate you bringing this up, and I'm definitely going to try those dried ramen toppings, and best luck with the book. Where can people get it? In Amazon?
Yeah, it's on Amazon. It's for free in the Kindle right now, but otherwise soft copy and hard copy.
Okay, and it's called again?
Walk Uphill.
Walk Uphill. Okay, man. Well, good talk to you. Cheers.
Thank you.
Day 76, which is actually still going on Saturday. I'm doing this just after lunchtime on Saturday afternoon. So it was a 0 day. I slept in. I didn't wake up till about 7:30, which was great, having gone to bed about 8:30 the night before. I think I woke about 4, but I got back to sleep again. So that was great. And I've been told that there's some really good breakfast in Duncannon at a place called Goodies. And people were not wrong. In fact, I got out of the hotel. Oh, by the way, let me go back before I go on to Goodies. Let me tell you about the Doyle. I would never have stayed at the Doyle in the past, and I was told it had been cleaned up a bit. And it has been cleaned up a lot, and the room's kind of acceptable. It's not great. It's a private room. It's $49, which isn't bad at all, really. Let's face it. But it's shabby. And unfortunately, whoever owns it probably can't get enough revenue from the rooms until they do it up. They probably can't do it up until they get enough revenue from rooms. It's a bit of a chicken and egg, but it's a fantastic old building. And there's this beautiful porch, a wraparound porch upstairs, which is a wonderful thing to sit on. In fact, I sat on that most of the morning. But anyway, I went downstairs to go to find this place, Goodies. I had no idea where it was, so I got Google Maps out. And I put Goodies in there, and it says 62 feet away. I looked up, and there it was, just across the road. So I went in there, had some biscuits and gravy, some fried eggs, about 3 coffees, some water, and just mooched around. It was great not to have to feel I had to go and do something. And I really enjoyed the relaxation of the day. So I went back up to the upstairs porch, just resting, as I say, and I played Monopoly online. For those of you who don't know, in fact, that probably most of you, because I probably never mentioned it before, back in 1977, I, as a young 25-year-old, I guess, played in the British Monopoly Championships on Fenchurch Street Station. Unfortunately, somebody sold one of the dark blue colours to somebody else, who then put houses on the dark blue colours. I landed on it, and I was winning, by the way, at the time, really well. But I landed on it on 3 consecutive laps, so I was out the game. Shocking. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I was also watching some YouTube videos and really putting off starting to work on the podcast. And I didn't start work till actually 12:50 p.m. But I was also waiting for a few more people to interview. And it's funny that people haven't been lucky enough to get people to interview other than Bounce, which I was happy about. But a couple of people asked for several reasons they couldn't do it or they wouldn't do it. And I don't know, maybe a little bit of shyness overtook them. I don't know about that. But I also noticed coming up in the week coming up that we've got 3 days coming up where the temperature is going to get over 100 degrees. That is worrying me. That's worrying me much more than rain, to be honest with you. I don't mind getting rained on too much. I try to avoid it if I can avoid packing up a wet tent. But I tell you, 100 degree heat, that's frightening. And I'm just hoping that we stay in the woods for most of that time. I suspect we won't, but you never know. So I'm now talking ahead for the day. I'm watching the England game at 5 p.m. and the World Cup. So I've got to get the podcast out before the game. I don't want to be too miserable if we lose or don't qualify top of the group, which I expect that we're going to do, but you just never know as an England supporter. I've already arranged with Wheezy P tomorrow to do an 18-mile slack pack in the morning back here, although I probably won't be staying in the Doyle. But that 18-mile slack pack will complete my week that I was planning to do 80 miles, and I will have done 100 miles. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, that's the end of day number 76. It's funny, I've rarely had any problems getting people to talk about hiking, but for some reason this week, apart from my friend Bounce, I've drawn a bit of a blank. I'm sure that will change next week, so look forward to some of those in the next podcast. As I said, the rocks of Rocksylvania are upon me now, and they present a challenge unlike anything we've seen so far. I mean, Maryland had some rocks, and it was tougher than I remembered, actually, and the early part of Pennsylvania has some rocks. But when I tell people I'm hiking with that they have seen nothing yet, I see doubt in their eyes. Whether I'm right or wrong about this, I'll tell you about it next time. I'll see you next Thursday.